All right, guys. Well, we've talked a lot about the Union and the Confederacy kind of coming into their own, right? But we never really talked about what actually happens. What's the spark, okay? So this is kind of the first in the series of three, maybe video lectures to get us ready for a quiz next Wednesday and to really wrap up the Civil War. Because, I mean, just foreshadowing here, we're going to split the country apart, right? And then we got to put it back together. So let's split the country apart before we can kind of, reconcile our differences and be a couple again. All right. So I got the red and blue going here. Union, Confederacy. So let's get going. Right. So we talked a lot about the Civil War, kind of leading up what actually happens, but it finally comes apart. So it all starts in 1860, right? November, Lincoln's elected. December 20th, not more than a month later, South Carolina says, no, we told you, if Lincoln gets elected, we're done, they secede. Then the next February, February 1st, 6 more states decide to follow South Carolina. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. Kind of that southern border along the Gulf and Atlantic, they all leave. Then March 4th, Lincoln finally takes office. And then April 1861, the Battle of Fort Sumter. Pretty much the first battle of the official Civil War. It's kind of the spark. It's like the assassination of Franz Ferdinand that sparked World War I. This is the spark of the Civil War. So what happens? Okay, so again here we can see states, secession. Okay, all the territories in the West, they're not governed, so they don't vote. Okay, the blue, the Union. Okay, these 4 states here. Okay, we got Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, and Rhode Island. Okay, they're slave-holding border states. They're Union, and then everyone else seceding south. Okay. So Fort Sumter, it's a Union military base off the coast of South Carolina. And Confederacy President Jefferson Davis believed that the Union should give it to the South. Okay, Lincoln says, no, it's ours. So here's his dilemma, Lincoln's dilemma. If he sent Navy to reinforce General Anderson, who's kind of holding the base for the Union, it would provoke war, right? It would be an act of militarism. If he didn't send the Navy, the Union would seem weak and portray the Confederacy as a legitimate power. You cannot give anything to the Confederacy to legitimize them as an actual government, right? You just can't do that as the Union president. So the first shots of the Civil War happen. Lincoln's very cautious, decides not to send military, but he decides to resupply the troops with food. Give the hungry men food. So Jefferson Davis, again, the Union president, he sees this as an act of militarism. I'm sorry, Confederacy president, and he attacks Fort Sumter. He says, no, it's ours. Look what you've done here. It's ours. So April 12, 1861, at 4:30 a.m., Confederate troops started firing on Fort Sumter. The attack lasted 33 hours, and it's just bombardment upon bombardment upon bombardment. And the citizens of Charleston cheered on the troops from the coast, right? They're cheering on the Confederacy. So April 13th, 1861, the Union surrenders it. Then the second wave of secession, okay? All the other states are kind of like, all right, what's actually going to happen here? Then they see Fort Sumter and they see a victory. So after the fall of Fort Sumter, Lincoln calls for a volunteer military, 75,000 troops to volunteer. And then between April 17th and June 8th, during that spring of 1861, the rest of the states secede: Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee. And there we have it there, okay? And there's an actual map, right? Splitting up the Union Confederacy. I'm sorry, not Delaware, and not Rhode Island, it's Delaware. That's the other border state. Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. Okay, slaveholding Union, slaveholding Union, slaveholding Union, slaveholding Union. Look where D.C. is here, right? Kind of a precarious position. So why do we hold these border states? Well, following the second wave, Lincoln can't afford to lose them. Why? Because of Maryland. He's got to keep it neutral, because if not, then Washington, D.C. is surrounded by Confederate states, right? Look at the map again. D.C.'s here, in slaveholding Confederate Virginia, and also slaveholding Union Maryland. So Lincoln acts. So he sends the military in to kind of prevent Maryland secession. Martial law, it's a military rule in Baltimore. There's no more state government. It's all run by the United States Union military. So to further protect D.C., the capital, Lincoln arrests and imprisons dozens of secessionist leaders without evidence. So this action violates the right of habeas corpus. It protects citizens from illegal imprisonment without evidence. Lincoln says, it doesn't matter. I got to do this. So he suspends the writ of habeas corpus, suspends it. It's not a law. So he can take anyone he wants and put them in prison without evidence. Okay? So then Chief Justice Taney ruled his actions unconstitutional, but Lincoln ignored the ruling. Doesn't matter. Got to preserve the Union. got to preserve it. Okay, so that's like the first couple things that really starts the Civil War. Okay, we have a battle, we have Lincoln breaking the Constitution, right, because he feels that he needs to, and we have kind of the Battle of DC kind of happening here, right? So what's going to happen? Well, that's going to come in the next couple video series. I hope you enjoyed this one, kind of the start off to the Civil War, right? And then we'll keep going with what we're doing in class. All right, guys, see ya.